now. I'm just prepping for the shower base mortar bed. So I'm using Screeding coupling membrane. Now this is not an approved method by the TCNA, but it is by Latacrete. It'll work just fine. You can do this, or you can just do a slip sheet, which would be tar paper, plastic, and then put lath down and staple it. And that's an unbonded mortar bed. This will be technically a bonded because I'm going to thin set this membrane down to the floor, then put thin set on top of the membrane, put the mud to that, so everything will be one pretty much. And then what you want to do is you want to have the flange, you want about 3/4 to an inch of mud under it. You can use these spacers, whatever you want. Slip them on this side. They come like this. For the foam pans, you put them here. Otherwise, you just stand them up like that, and that gives you about 3/4 to an inch. So we have more than enough under there to be properly supported. I pre-cut the pipe there. The PVC pipe is cut to length. It's not glued in yet, but it will be. So first step I'm going to do is I'm pull the drain out, thin set down the strata mat, and then once I have that down, I'll set the perimeter heights of my ledger pieces here. I like to use, I just ripped down perfectly straight pieces of Hydraband board. This foam board is pretty stiff, so I can screed to that. Essentially what I do is I shoot my laser around, set my furthest point of the drain, which will probably be at that corner, and make sure the floor is wherever the highest point is. You want to start from there. You don't want to start from the low point on the floor, because the mortar bed will change. So whatever the highest point of the drain, you want to get this level as you can. Right now I'm pretty close. So that's level that way. And it's very close to level that way. So that's what you want, because if it's this way or that way, then the slope on the mortar bed won't be correct. So my plan is to start over there. I'm going to shoot the laser in the room here and see what my highest point is on the subfloor, and then I'll start my slope from that side. So I'm roughly a little bit less than 2 feet from the furthest point here. This drain is pretty much center of the shower within tolerance here. So what I'm going to do is go for 1/4 inch per foot, so less than 2 feet. So every foot you have a 1/4 inch. So I have 2 feet, which is actually less than 2 feet, but I'm just going to go with a 1/2 inch. They give me just a little bit more than a 1/4 inch per foot, roughly. You always could go more. You don't want to go less. But at the same time, you don't want, you know, crazy 3/4 inch per foot slope. Like when I do pebbles, I do 3/8. So anywhere between 3/8 and a 1/4 inch is what I usually like to prefer. On this floor is going to be about a 3x3 hex. So 1/4 inch should do it. I'm just going to do slightly more. Doesn't hurt. And that's where I'm at. I'll show you step by step how I'm going to do it. Okay, so I checked the floor. This is my high point. It drops over here by about 3/8 or so. So I'm definitely going to start from over here, so that way I fill on this lower side. It won't hurt if I start from the low side. It's be less mortar over here, but I'm just going to start here, fill on the lower side over here. First thing I'm going to do, set my strata here. It's a Latacrete strata mat, typical uncoupling membrane, works just fine. If you watch my older videos, you see I use a blinky permanent, and that works really good too. Really strengthens up the floor. Again, you don't have to do it, but I got 1.25 inch subfloor, everything installed properly with the proper fastener. So no matter what I do here, the subfloor is more than strong enough for this mortar bed. I've already vacuumed and wiped down the substrate. I'm going to install this like I would on any substrate and floor. First thing I do is wash it down. The damp sponge wringed out. Take this down good. Good to go. Got a small bucket here. I'll have to mix more, I will. 3/16 by 3/16 square notch trowel. This is through the Detroit. You use a V-notch too, as long as it's 3/16 deep. You can use a wood float, press it in to this section and pull it up because you got Oh yeah, see that? That's looking real good. Really impressive so far. Okay, now we set the heights. Basement's gonna come over here up about 1.5 inches. And that should do it. What I like to do is take a little bit of thin set on the back of these, just using the same Dietrich trowel here. It just helps it really hold on the wall. I mean, it's going to be held by screws, but it doesn't hurt to put some thin set on there. It's really going to be a solid bond there with the wall. This is going to stay in place. It's coming out. This room over here, and I took pictures of the wall, so if there's any pipes, I know that there's going to be a vent pipe coming up over here. So really not going to try to put any screws over here. I'll put a screw over here, then maybe 4 on this side, and then 1 over here, maybe down into the plate too. That's it. So I got pictures of all this stuff, so I know what's going on, where everything's at. See, got all pictures of all that stuff there. This wall, we got nothing in it, so we'll get to that screw in work. I'll put 1 screw over here, and I'm going to shoot the lathe in here and get this right where I want it to do. Take a marker, ideally a good one, so you get a fine line on there. Marker, pencil, whatever suits you. So I'm just going to put a mark here. I'll make this is down on here, hold it there. I'm just going to take my pencil and just mark the base of the laser, just breaks that. So I'll make the same thing over here now. We're going to bring this down. Cut out this ledger a little bit here. I'm also going to label it like that, so I know that this is the top. So probably the floor is a little bit higher on this side, but that's all right. Just a little bit on this side higher, so I'm going to pour. Should be just the floor having a pump in it there. Now this is definitely going to be time-consuming way of doing this. You could just put your mud in here and, you know, do your screeds with the mud and screed off of that. I found, you know, I'm not a really crazy good mud guy. I would say I'm a good mud guy, but I don't do this, you know, on a weekly basis. It's when I do showers, so that's every few months or so. But this is like a easy way to get your screeds perfectly level and to screed from. So you really can't go wrong doing it this way. What I will say is that it definitely takes some time, but once you put your mortar in, you just screed to it, and it actually goes quicker with the mortar bed versus fiddle around with your screeds, with your mud to get them perfectly flat and worry about digging into them where you're screeding. So this is definitely an option for you to do. Those are, just do it the same way that I'm doing here. Okay, now I got all my screed ledger boards around the perimeter here. I'm checking the drain. I just have it dry fit in here. I'm just using the foam spacers that come with the Suda drain to give me that 3/4 to 1 inch amount of mortar under it. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking a straight edge. I'm going from the drain flange to the corner and just checking my pitch to make sure I have a 1/2 inch. So what I do is I just take a couple horseshoe spacers, adding to about my 1/2 inch or whatever my desired pitch is, and I put that on top of the flange, and from the flange to the corner wall there, it should be level. You could have a little bit more pitch, but you definitely don't want less than a 1/4 inch per foot. So that's the method I usually use to check it. So I'm basically going to check it here, and then I'm going to glue in the flange. Now, how I like to usually do my fluted, the flanges here, since the back of them are real smooth. If I have enough time, I'll sand it down and then take some liquid membrane and paint the coat on there. I'm not sure if I had time on this project to do that, but if not, I definitely rough it up. Then I take this small trowel, either 1/8 inch or 3/16, notch the back of it before I glue it in. So I'm going to show you the process actually on a video here, how I do it, so just pay attention here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I like to glue the PVC pipe into the drain flange first and let that dry for about a minute or two. That way when I push it down into the P-trap, that piece stays in place. So I'm going to prime everything and then glue it in. As you've seen, I filled the membrane around the drain with some thin set, and then I'm just taking my mortar here for the mortar bed, and it just mixed up a little bit looser here. I use a small bucket to just add a little bit more water that way to try to help it bond the best I can to the flange. You don't want to like water, but you just want a little bit looser with more water than you would, you know, the rest of the mortar base. So I want to put some dabs there just to get under the flange real good. You don't want to put too much because you can always pack the flange after, and that's what I'm pretty much doing here. I think I have a little bit less, but you definitely, you know, it's easier to get to it right now before you set the drain. So I'm just taking a thin set to the back of the flange, getting it all completely covered. That way everything is completely bonded. Because with these sewer drains, if you don't have a good bond to it on the flange, it could potentially pop up. I mean, I haven't had this happen to me before. I had one flange where it wasn't packed really well on one side, and it would just bounce up and down like at 30 seconds. So I had to actually drill little holes on the side of it and really just pack thin set, and then once I did that, it held down. But just make sure that when you do this, you glue it in and then you pack it under. And when you're packing the mortar under it, okay, it's important that you're not pushing down on the flange once the glue is dry. You want to, if anything, if it's off level a little bit, you want to take some regular consistency dry pack mortar here, and you want to lift it, and that's really going to hold it down in place. You don't want to try to push on the flange. If anything, again, you want to lift it up with the mortar. So I'm going to show you how I'm going about this here. Okay, this might be obvious for some of you, but for some of you not. Anytime you glue in PVC together, or even ABS, I believe, you want to hold the connection together for about 30 seconds. So I'm pushing the drain with the pipe right hatchet down, and I do a turn to it. You only have to do about a quarter, half turn at the most. And then you just hold it in place for about 30 seconds till the glue sets up. And then once I get that where I need it, then I'm going to put my level on it and make sure it's level before I pour in the rest of my mortar. Now I'm just going to spread out the whole area, filling the membrane with the thin set I have mixed up. Then I'm going to dump my mud in there. Once I get in there, then I'm probably going to level off the drain, make sure that's good, and then go from there. Again, checking for level. I believe this one was pretty good actually where I had it. I'm just checking it both ways, and that was good there. So I'm just gonna dump in the rest of my mud and screed to the drain here, packing as I go. I'll try to show you how I'm going about doing that as well. Okay, so I got my mud in here. I like to use a wood float to move it around to get it to roughly the height I need it. And I use the edges to scrape it off the ledger pieces I have there so I can see where it's at now. You really want to be anywhere from a half to 3/4 inches higher than your desired finish part. So if the mud is against the screed there and I can see it, I want it to be about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch roughly above that. Because once you pack it down, it's going to compress. And when you have it compressed, you still want it a little bit higher so you can screed it off. If you have any low spots, and you have to kind of dig them out and repack it and do it all again. Because if the mud doesn't really bond to itself, it kind of just sits together kind of like grout wood. So if you have a low spot and it's, you know, like only 1/8 inch deep and you throw mud there, it's really not going to stay together too well unless you wet it really well. So you really have one shot at doing this. If it's too low, then you're better off just digging out the whole section at least 1 inch down and then just repacking it. So having a little bit higher, it doesn't hurt. You just don't want it too high because then you're going to be screeding for days and it's going to make, you know, mud all over the place. So that's how I go about, you know, doing the whole rest of the mortar bed there. I do a small sections, pack it down, and I have multiple different aluminum screeds. I have a set that goes from 2 foot to like a little bit less than 1 foot or so. So that way you can get into the tight place and long place. Also have longer ones all the way up to 6 feet for, you know, bigger showers and longer points from the perimeter to the drain. So it's pretty much as simple as that to do this. Now this is, you know, a highly skilled thing. It's not going to be that easy when you're screeding. You know, it takes time to learn it, but using this method does make things a little bit easier as far as the perimeter goes and into the drain, so you get a nice level flat screed. So that's the process I follow going around. I'll show you towards the end here what's the next step. Okay, I got the whole shower base screeded out, and I'm just removing the excess mortar now using my shredded and a flat trowel. Once I get through that, what I usually like to do is take the same wood float, making sure that it's clean on the bottom, scrape off any excess mortar. I like to take that and I run it around to fill any high spots, and then it just smooths over everything really nice. Now when I'm doing this, I'm not really pressing much at all. I'm kind of just floating over it. Try not to dig into it. You want to stay in the shape and the contour of the mortar bed and not dig into it. So I'm just going around, feeling for any spots, any little, you know, divots anywhere. I just fill it in and, you know, pack again and go in circle pattern to fill it in with the wood flow. And that usually does a pretty good job. Once I get done with this, I'll take the metal trowel there, flat trowel, and I'll flat trowel the whole thing. Once I get done with that, I'll take a mist. Actually, I take a bottle, a spray bottle, and I'll mist the whole shower pan. Now I'm not hosing it so it's completely saturated. I'm just misting it pretty well, and that kind of locks anything that's on the surface that's loose. And I flat trowel it again. I kind of do that to a point where it looks pretty good. You don't want to over flat trowel because you kind of like burn the surface. So flat trowel right now, mist it, and flat trowel again. And usually is pretty good. So as I do that, I definitely check around. You don't want any really big missing chunks. If you do, you want to fill them in now, and that's really it. This flat trowel is good to go. That's it. Let this dry, come back tomorrow, put on the curtain. You can see all looking good. So tomorrow, anything loose like this, which I don't really need on there, I'll just come in, vacuum it all up. But I don't want to disturb anything, so I'm just going to leave it be tomorrow. Come in here, vacuum it up, you're good to go. Laying out this Screeding sheet membrane, and I have a Sluter drain flange here, and they come with these templates to cut it out. It even says right on there. So how I find the drains, I feel for the farthest part of the edges, and I mark it. Okay, once I mark it, I'm going to put my template on here, and I'm going to mark it around the edge and then cut it out. It's hard to do this one-handed, but you can see how I'm going to do this. I basically just put it there roughly, I'll mark the edges and then cut it. Okay, that's what she looks like when she's done. Template. I like to go just slightly bigger. So I've marked the line, basically take the whole line out. And that way when you do set it on here, you don't have the edge of it here flapping over this lip. You want it to the lip or just slightly back. So that's what I'm doing here, see? And once you thin set this down, it will stretch out a little bit, but that's how I want it. That's good. Hopefully that helps you.